Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find.
I think I'm here. I'm not sure, but I think I am. Just trying to find things in different places today. I might sound like I'm just my usual self, but I've got a bit of a cold in the head at the moment, which is just really throwing my thinking skills even worse. So yeah, it's annoying. I really wish it wasn't happening. Anyway, I don't think I need to see that. Let's go back over to whatever it was I was looking at there, which doesn't mean anything to you guys anyway. Right. Oops, sorry. So I'm here. I'm going to be reading this book here, and at the moment I've got a bit of a cold, so if I cough and it sounds like it's going to go on for a while, I'll try and mute the microphone. I'll try not to cough at the microphone for a start. Yeah, and our weather is that stage of autumn where sometimes it's too hot, sometimes it's too cold, and then if you have a cold on top of that yourself, it's weird. It's really weird. My voice is seemingly working okay at the moment, so that's good. I'm intending to be reading again on Friday, but warning everybody, I do actually have a phone call that's supposed to be coming through sometime during my normal stream time, where I'm just getting a report on medical report over the phone. They only do it one day a week that they actually do these phone consults. So hopefully it will just be a couple of minutes and I will just hit the pause screen, or at least hit the mute so you can look at whatever background I've currently got. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't even know exactly when they're going to call, because it depends on how long they take on somebody else. Last time I had a call like that, they actually phoned about an hour or 2 hours earlier. So that was really good. So I don't know. But I'm intending to still be streaming unless this cold is worse. In which case I will put it up on somewhere on social media, preferably in the Discord as well, that I won't be streaming if that's the case. Let's get on with, first of all, some tips for those who haven't been here before. And for those who have, now's your time to take notes or record yourself doing the tips so that you can have your version up here in this slot. So here we go. Somewhere or other, we are going to get a tip video. I don't know who we've got today. Raccoons!
Hello.
Yay!
My name is Raccoon Z. In Z. That's right. 3 C's and 3 O's. Ha! So, welcome to the stream. We have many tips for you to help enjoy the stream. Number 1, have a drink. I like water. As soon as my human helps me out here. So, another part of that is when I hydrate, when I take a drink, you do too. You can indicate that you've done so by giving a thumbs up or use the water bottle emoji down in chat. Number 3, sure, why not? Food or snacks? I don't have any right now, but you eat whatever you like to eat. Maybe it's a whole meal, maybe it's a snack. I don't know. You do you. Number 4, get comfy. You can wrap up in something. Thanks, human. That's more like it. Grab a pillow, maybe you've got a fidget toy you can play with. But do anything you like to be comfy. You could even have, I don't know, maybe your favorite human will give you scritches. Hey, human. That's right. Give me scritches. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. No, don't touch the floof. Next, we have number 5, something to write with or write on. Hey, I can't reach the pad. There you go. And I need something to write on. I just said something to write. Oh wait, that's something to write on. I need something to write with. Okay. Okay, so I don't have opposable thumbs, but you do. Write memos down. You might need to remember something. Maybe not right now, but maybe after the stream. Number 6, get involved. Join in chat. Chat in chat. Use commands. Play bingo because, that lady says some pretty crazy things from time to time. Make clips. You can even have them featured. Maybe we can see your clips someday. Spin the pages, which are like right down there somewhere. They look like a book or something. The thing down there with a number under chat. And just do whatever you can to enjoy chat. Thanks for watching.
And welcome back. Yeah, raccoons really is quite lovely. Although somewhat unpredictable. Watch out for when you're giving them scritches. You might end up with a don't touch the floof. Yeah, just like our cat, Theodore, the other regular critter associated with this channel, I guess. Right, what are we up to? I am looking around everywhere trying to figure it out, but I should be looking down here because on my book, right in front of me, book being my iPad mini, where the book is hosted, we have the next chapter of our story. So currently we are reading The Rover Boys Out West. I am not reading book 3 of the series because from what I've heard of it, it's a lot more racist than most other books from this era, just because it's set in Africa for a good chunk of it. And it shows some very old-fashioned attitudes. Not even ones that were current at the time, but ones that were a little bit old at the time. So, no, we don't need that. It really takes away the enjoyment of a story when they get a little bit over the top with it. And they weren't being particularly derogatory at the time, but in this day and age, it's very derogatory, so we don't need that. So we're going to be reading Chapter 8 of The Rover Boys Out West, subtitled, Or the Search for a Lost Mine. And I remember when I first introduced it to you saying that it actually had similarities, titling-wise anyway, with another one that we've had, which was to do with a mine out west, and that was, I think, the last Hardy Boys book we read. They went out west, and they had some adventures there too. So we'll see how they stack up against each other, but not doing too much over the top comparison, just because written slightly different time frames, but actually published by the same outfit. Although the Rover Boys were actually pre-Stratemeyer Syndicate until a bit later on, and then they were brought into the fold. It was before Edward Stratemeyer got the Stratemeyer Syndicate actually up and running. I think this is one of the books that got him in the mood for doing that sort of thing. And that style of publication house was called a book packager. And what they did was they would have the books written, they would get them edited and formatted and everything ready to go as one of a bundle of books, books available. Sorry, a little bit of grain from my lunch still under my gum. I had toasted granny bread, very yum. So Stratemeyer Syndicate would do a whole series of books for kids, and they would start with a few books in the very first instance for a series, and then after that they would do a new book every year or every 6 months or something like that for that series. And they would commission different authors to write each of these books. They would do a series Bible which explained about what the requirements were for each of the books that were in that series. In fact, you can find out more about that if you go to the Wikipedia page about Stratemeyer Syndicate. They actually have a little summary there about what, for most of the books, what was done for Story Bible idea. There are a couple of factors in the Rover Boys, and also there was an early series which we've read 1 or 2 of about that girl at the Red Mill, and I can't remember her name. Those ones are exceptions because there is more serious interpersonal relationship with somebody that they end up with either going out with or getting married to or something like that in those series. All of the rest of them, the kids don't grow up, the kids of the series, and also they don't end up getting married or doing any serious dating or anything like that, because Stratemeyer realised that he wanted his readers, his target market, to actually continue to be interested in the book. Not necessarily the same child as they got older and got into relationships, but that sector of the reading market, which was kids between this age and this age, where they're not really interested in whether or not the person got older and got married and had kids and all that sort of stuff. They actually focused on what they were doing. It's one of the aspects of some of the other series. Authors who've written a series of books, which I have enjoyed their books, but I'm not going to be reading all of the series here. So that would include the Emily books by L.M. Montgomery. It also includes her Anne of Green Gables series. And also actually the other L.M. lady, Louisa May Alcott, the Little Women series. I'm not actually interested in reading about, and then they got to be 18 years old and they were dating this person, and then they went out with that person, and then there were all of these troubles in their workplace, and they decided whether or not they were going to stay working there. I don't want adult novels. I want kids' novels, because this is a bit of escapism for us. So that's why I'm not really interested in reading some of the stuff that is more sequential in other series. These particular ones I'm going to go with because they're still a lot more stylized. And these 2 series, Ruth something of Red Mill, I can't remember her name, and the Rover Boys. And I think we're going to end up with one of the Rover Boys either getting married with or getting very sweet on and getting engaged to the girl in the series that we've had before. But other than that, all of the Stratemeyer Syndicate books, they've got in the series Bible for each of the books that the character is not going to age very much and they're not going to get into a life relationship, just because they wanted to keep the series active for the target market, which was not an individual who is maturing, but an age group. So that makes sense, actually, if you think about it, in terms of being able to keep selling more books in the series. So it's a bit of an interesting read if you actually have a look at the Stratemeyer Syndicate page on Wikipedia. There are other pages around, not on Wikipedia, where people have done a lot of research into the background of some of the different book series, the different authors, and that sort of stuff, because this is a pseudonym. That's why it's italicized. Arthur M. Winfield is the author series, the series author for the Rover Boys books, but also for one or two other series. It was actually, the first few books were actually written by Edward Stratemeyer, I think. And then he handed off to somebody else to continue writing them. He did not want his name on the cover of any of the books in his series as an author, because he felt that was restricting for what he had in mind for what he was going to guide with his business. And it makes sense. Anyway, so what I was talking about, book packages, what would happen is you'd have a publishing organization such as the Stratemeyer Syndicate. They would then go to a traditional publisher and say, here, look, publish this. The editing's been done, the illustrations have been done, the story is complete. These are the projected further books and some of the projected further books in the series. So you've got more business ongoing. All you have to do is actually publish it. And so publishers would publishers would take it on to release it, because they didn't have to put the effort into finding a new author, holding their hand until they got confident enough, and then doing so many edits before it was actually publishable. They had someone approaching them who had a complete package ready to go and understood what the requirements were for publication. And so that's what a book packager does. As part of it along the way, they are a publisher themselves, but they're not the ones who send it to the printer and get it printed up and all that sort of stuff. They will deal with a traditional publisher like Grosset and Dunlap or someone like that, who I think may have been one of the publishers for a lot of the different Stratemeyer Syndicate books. I don't know. It's just a particular name combination that I remember. I don't know why. I just do. It's a little bit like, I remember that the Swallows and Amazon series of books were published by Jonathan Cape. I don't know why I remember that. I just do. Do you have any weird things like that you remember for no apparent reason? It's quite fun sometimes figuring them out. I'm going to have to be careful that I don't get too loud or laugh too hard, because it makes my throat itchy. And I don't want to go off into an intense bout of coughing or anything like that. So hopefully I'm speaking loud enough for you to hear me. Now, regarding the tips, yes, I do have a fidget handy. I have what do they call this one? A Nido gumdrop. So it looks a little bit like one of those gumdrop lollies. And it's a slow squish. So it's one where it's a very satisfying, you just keep you pressing down on it. You can stretch them a bit, but I actually find that the most satisfying part of these ones is just squishing it slowly and then letting it return to its original shape, which it does. It takes a while though, that's all. Very comfortable. So make sure you've got whatever fidget you need handy. Make sure you've got your drinks and your snacks, as Raccoon's told us we need to do. And you have your water for hydration purposes. I once again do not have any keywords because I forgot. And then when I did remember, I couldn't get the website to work. I don't know if it's my browser, if it's my settings, if it's my computer and a poor connection. I really don't know what's going on with it at the moment. So for now, we are not using keywords. I'm sorry about that. It's just the way life is. Anyway, let's carry on with reading. We shall drink water whenever we jolly well feel like it, won't we? So I'm going to start by having a drink now. I was making friends with somebody over on a different Discord server the other day, And they were quite excited about the fact that we read these really old kids' books. And they said, would you mind if I raid into your channel sometime? And I said, no, as long as you don't mind that we're going to be pretty tough on things like lurkers who don't ever say anything to prove that they are a real person. I'm not talking to you, Void, because you make sure that you do tell us who you are. Well, when you first arrived, you introduced yourself, and also you interact, and then later on you go to lurking. That is fabulous. That's exactly what we're after. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, there are such a thing as lurker bots. They will come and they will sit in someone's channel and they will harvest people's data. Don't assume that a user that sits there doing nothing is harmless. They're not. They are either gathering information or they're summoning up the courage or getting their ducks in a row or something to be able to start spamming you or your followers. Some of them, I think, will lurk to actually get to capture the links that streamers often have for their Discord servers so they can go and join those Discord servers and then spam the different members on the channel. I had somebody do that once. It was rather nasty. And I didn't know it had happened because they were smart enough to not spam me. They only spammed the other users in my Discord server. Not good. Thankfully, I had a bunch of people who let me know. So we got rid of that person and we also, that account. And then we also made sure to set some things in place so that that's a bit harder to do. So my recommendation for Discord is turn off your DMs for anyone you are not already communicating with. There's a privacy setting there. It's part of privacy and security. So that people can't just randomly send you a friend request or send you a message. And then if you are in someone's channel or if you are talking in another Discord server somewhere else and you are getting to know, you've got to know somebody and you know that they're trustworthy enough for the context and they want to talk to you privately, then open up your messaging to someone you haven't privately messaged before until they have established that conversation with you, and then close off your messaging again. Because once you've got them in your inbox and they are talking with you, they still have that permission until you revoke it. But it means that you're not going to get spammed by a whole lot of people and a whole lot of channels that are really busy Discord servers. I'm in some very big Discord servers and I often will hear people saying, oh, I've just got spammed again, or I've just had a friend request from somebody or a message from somebody and it looks a bit dodgy. One of the common dodgy ones is that the Discord username will look like some famous Twitch streamer, but when you actually look at the proper username, not the alias username, they'll often have a little bit of extra punctuation or numbers or something in the username. And they will have put a link to that streamer's Twitch channel, but just you can put whatever link you want in your profile on Discord. So there's no real way of checking that. You don't just assume that because they've got someone's Twitch link there, that it's actually that person. So yeah, look after yourselves, look after your data. Anyway, so maybe one day, not today, I'm not saying that, but we may end up with a bunch of extra people arriving and joining in. So if we do, please encourage them to be involved. Please welcome them. The person I was talking to actually said if any of her community are misbehaving, she wants to know about it and definitely kick them out. So that's good that we've got that permission. Well, not permission. I own my channel. It's my channel. I have that permission anyway, but they agree with me about it. They also do family-friendly streaming, and so they said, no, I totally get that. Although I personally am very aware of the fact that my settings are probably a lot more stringent than other people's are, because I want to keep this a safe space. So that's why we don't have people shouting in here. And when I say shouting, I'm meaning using all caps. when you comment on something. You can get really excited and type in all caps, but if it's more than a certain number of characters or a certain proportion of the comment, your comment will not come through, just because so many spammers who drop links and things like that into chats will actually use all caps to grab people's attention. And so we've got all caps turned off as one of the things that won't let comments come through. Anyway, so yeah, if we do get extra people arriving, if people come from a raid or anything like that, be kind, be welcoming, be friendly, encourage them to actually get involved with chat so that we can see that they're real people. But also let me know if you think anything a bit weird has been going on, or if you get approached by anyone from that particular bunch. Anytime, I'm not talking about that particular person, I'm talking about any time a raid happens, if you have anything like that going on, where someone approaches you and you don't think that their behaviour was normally appropriate, let me know so I can make sure that either they get a watch put on them in channel or they get banned if that's appropriate, but also so I can keep an eye out that they're not going to arrive in the Discord server and be disruptive. Yeah, enough of all that. Oh, and don't forget, you can find out about all this and more, when I spell it correctly, by watching the Goriki Mod Learn videos. Now, that has given you a link to one of the YouTube videos. They are unlisted videos as far as I know. So if you want to watch the other ones, you have to use the Mod Learn 2 and the Mod Learn 3 commands to get the links for those ones, okay? But they're really worth watching. They are long. It's a lot of information. Watch, take notes, take a pause, do something else, come back to it later on today, tomorrow, another day, but go back to them. Oh, good, the Mod Learns are public. That's good, you'll be able to. But they're on different channels, aren't they? Like one of them's on your channel, one's on Our Commutations channel or something like that. I can't remember. There was some reason why I kept on telling people that they need to actually use the command to be able to get the links for them. Anyway, so you watch them, learn from them, and if you are just a viewer, make sure you update your profile on Twitch. You can customize your profile just as much as any streamer can, which is quite cool, actually. You can choose your favorite color and everything else. Oh, good. Craig also has number 1. Yeah, no, that's cool. Make sure you update your profile and don't go interacting with people on social media who do weird things or send you messages. I got one the other day. We would love you to be an ambassador. And if you say yes to being an ambassador for us, your pet, your lovely pet, will get 4 free pet toys. Well, for one, they never actually referenced specifically anything about my pet posts. Just they have a harvesting thing goes on that looks for anything that has pets. Words. House, never horse. I've got no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, so, yeah. Automatically it gets flagged in my mind as being a bot because they don't know me from Adam. I don't talk about pets all the time. So just don't. If it looks too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Oh, yes, thank you. House, never, and horse. Never is a little bit hard to pick up. And I'm finding that the object words are ones that I recognise easily when we're doing keywords. The nouns. But any other words I'm finding quite hard to actually spot them when they're in the middle of being read. Minor then. Okay, I'll get these keywords going and then we shall carry on and read the story. So thank you for sorting those out, Goriki. I'll need to have a bit of an investigation as to why that's not working for me. Because I tried last time and this time. House. Minor. I'm just going to separate them. Minor and horse. I'm separating house and horse from each other. There you go. So we have some keywords. I am going to turn on the keyword overlay. There you go. Now, I've actually also got there what the two commands are so that you know you can use either of those commands, either key or K word, to highlight this cluster of words here so that we all know that we've got to drink water. That's how it works. So here we go. Thank you very much for that, Goriki. I do appreciate it. Let's read this book. We're reading The Rover Boys Out West, or The Search for a Lost Mine. And I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit like other stories where you have half the story happens at home, even though the title talks about it being somewhere completely different. And it's only the last half or third of the book that's actually that unusual location. Excuse me. Right, carrying on. What became of Tom? Remember last time? Tom was going back to the school to let them know that there was something wrong, to get help. And he was taking the horse, I think. And Dick was staying at the house just to keep things safe. And apparently Tom didn't arrive. So we're going to find out what happened. To go back to Tom at the time when he left Dick and the Stanhopes and started to return to Putnam Hall. He went away whistling gaily, for he thought that all danger was over. What a shame I had to miss the celebration, he murmured, and after my success on the football field too. Yeah, the celebration was because they had won their football match. And then they'd come over to the house because there was some weird stuff going on. And so they missed the school celebration for winning the match. Soon the Stanhope grounds were left behind and he struck the main road leading to the academy. He had advanced a distance of several hundred feet along this road when, on looking ahead, he observed some person coming slowly towards him. It's a little bit sus. Wondering who the individual could be and thinking of Crabtree, that's Josiah Crabtree, who used to be a teacher at the school, who's all about making money, and he wants to marry Mrs. Stanhope so that he could get her daughter's legacy. Back in the day when it was not so hard to legally have someone's will legacy rules changed in favour of a man, because it did. These days it stacks up a lot more as being, no, you can't change that because that's actually the way legally it's written, as that person is going to inherit that regardless of what you want to do about it. Just the way it works. Anyway, let's carry on. Wondering who the individual could be and thinking of Crabtree, he stopped short. At the same time, the other person also halted, and then of a sudden slipped out of sight behind the nearest trees. That's sus. Hello, that's odd, murmured the youth. Evidently he doesn't want to be seen. Can it be Crabtree? He was unarmed and had some hesitancy about advancing, not knowing what to expect. And what do we think he should have done? He should have hightailed it on the horse back to the school, shouldn't he? But he did not wish the former teacher to escape, and so casting around he espied a sharp stone and picked it up. I'm assuming he was on the horse. I thought he went back on the horse. Hi there, come out of that, he called as he ran forward. No, he wasn't on the horse, sorry, my mistake. As he ran forward and held the stone ready for use. No reply was vouchsafed, and he called again. By this time he was directly opposite the spot where the mysterious individual had disappeared. Look here, Josiah Crabtree, you might as well come out and give yourself up, he called sharply. Still, there was no answer, and now Tom did not know what to do. Under the trees it was so dark that he could scarcely see a yard in front of him. Yet he advanced several paces, still holding the stone up as a weapon of offence or defence, as the case might prove. But nobody appeared in sight, and at last he returned to the road. He was in a quandary whether to return to the cottage or continue on his way to the hall. I suppose I may as well go on, he concluded. Neither Dick nor I can do much in the woods in the dark. So he went on, but this time more slowly, wondering if Josiah Crabtree would follow him, and never dreaming that the person who had slipped him was not the former teacher, but Dan Baxter. That's the old school bully. Oh dear. For Baxter it was who had been waiting around to be joined by Crabtree, for the pair of evildoers had come to the vicinity of the Stanhope cottage together. "It's Tom Baxter," muttered. "It's Tom Rover," muttered Baxter, on hearing the boy's voice. "I was lucky to get out of the way." He remained as motionless as a statue while Tom passed within a dozen feet of him. Then when Tom went out onto the road again, Baxter ran forth too, but in the opposite direction. Down on the side of the road, Baxter had that day run across a tramps' encampment. In the camp were 3 hobos, as they are sometimes called. Rascals who are willing to do almost anything but work for a living. The sentence doesn't quite run properly. They had demanded money of the bully, and he gave them $1, fearing violence if he refused them. Baxter now thought of the tramps, and as he did so, an evil look crossed his face. Dun, dun, dun! Of course. "If only I can pay off Tom Rover," he muttered. "I'll do it if I can." And he wants to pay him off because he feels offended that Tom basically was one of the ones who made sure that he wasn't able to bully people. Oh, great to have you here past shelf date. Well done. We've only just got started. You haven't missed much today. I'm just going to write something down. Right. And yes, I do have my note paper and pen handy. I hope you do too. Oh, one of the things I want to be able to do when I get my computer up and working, my replacement computer, and then have it up and working, is there are extras that I started to set up in the earlier days before this one got so old, like Stream Fog, which is where you can have like Snapchat filters, like a mask, things like that. And you can also do effects that can move behind you and in front of you and things like that, and they're quite cool, as redeems, all sorts of things. But I also want to be able to do things like blurps or sound alerts and things. So at the moment, my computer is not up to having too many different browser sources in OBS. There's technical stuff for you. But once I get a replacement computer, which I'm still in the middle of working out what I need, yeah, that should be good. And I do technically need it for what I do for work, which is home-based, but it's work on the computer. And so therefore, it's quite good. We should be able to get that as part of our business expenses. I mean, we still have to pay for it, but it means we do get a tax refund at the end of the financial year. Excuse me. It means it's a little bit less onerous, the costing of it, in the long run. Right, carrying on. Don't forget these words here: house, miner, and horse. Those are our keywords. Baxter now thought of the tramps, and as he did so, an evil look crossed his face. "If only I can pay off Tom Rover," he muttered. "I'll do it if I can." Soon the tramps' encampment was reached, and he found 2 of the men dozing before a tiny fire with an empty liquor bottle between them. This is not well edited at all. Between them, they've written then, and there's no comma. The 3rd tramp had gone to Cedarville for more liquor. "Wake up here," cried Baxter. I think it's meant to be there. Catching first one and then the other by the shoulder. "What do you want, young fella?" demanded the leader of the party, who rejoiced in the name of Stumpy Nuggs. How's that for a name for you? Stumpy Nuggs. "I want you 2 men to help me lay a boy out," answered Dan Baxter, feeling that there was no use in mincing matters, for he knew that the tramps were a bad crowd. "Lay a boy out?" repeated the 2nd tramp, who was called Longback. "Yes, he's an enemy of mine and just passed on the road yonder. If you'll help me thrash him and make him a prisoner, I'll give you each $5. "Say, you're talking big." Sometimes you just have to rush to presses. Yeah, they shouldn't have, though. It's really not worth it. I'll give you each $5. Say, you're talking big, said Stumpy Nuggs. I mean what I say. I know you're not above doing such work by the way you tackled me. Is the boy alone? Yes. And you want to whip him and then take him a prisoner? Yes. What you going to do with him after that? I don't know yet. Who's the boy? A cadet up at the military academy above here. Stumpy Nuggs scratched his head of tangled hair. Maybe you're getting us into a trap for asking you for that $1, he observed suspiciously. I would be thinking if the guy is offering me $5 each to go and take out this kid, what about we save ourselves the work and the hassle and just demand that $5 each off him now? Because otherwise, where is he getting that to pay for them? You don't do the work unless you know that the person's going to pay you. He's already only paid you $1. He thought he got off easily. Why don't you insist that he goes ahead and gives you that $10 anyway? Maybe he's going to. Maybe you're getting us into a trap for asking you for that $1, he observed suspiciously. No, I'm not. This boy is an old enemy of mine and I want to get square with him. We can easily catch him before he gets to the academy if you hurry up. And you'll give us $5 each? Yes, and perhaps more. The boy carries a watch and must have some money in his pocket. He also wears a gold ring. At the mention of jewellery and money, the tramp's eyes glistened. If you are telling the truth, it's all right, said Stumpy Nuggs as he arose and stretched himself. I am telling you the truth, and you can easily prove it for yourselves. Only hurry up or it'll be too late. The two tramps consulted each other and asked a few more questions. Then they agreed to follow Baxter and do whatever he desired of them, providing that they were allowed their fair share of the plunder, if there was any. In the meantime, Tom went on in deep thought. He still held the stone in his hand. He wished he had a club, but the stick he had formerly picked up had been left at the cottage. The hall grounds had just come into sight in the dim distance when the boy heard the patter of footsteps behind him. He turned round but could see nobody, and at that instant the sounds ceased. Somebody's following me, he thought. Can it be the same party I spotted before? An instant later he found himself confronted by two men and a boy, each with a bit of cloth tied over his face, into which 2 holes had been cut for eyes. Is that him? Asked one of the men. Yes, answered the boy in a strangely unnatural voice. Give it to him. So he's trying to make it sound like he's somebody else. All 3 of the party carried sticks, and they at once fell upon Tom, hitting him over the shoulders and the head. He did his best to defend himself and hit Baxter in the arm with the stone, inflicting a wound that made the bully shriek with pain. So it's you, Baxter, cried Tom, recognising the voice. What do you mean by this? Knock him down, yelled the bully. Don't let him get away from you. Thus urged, the 2 tramps closed in, and while one caught Tom by the arm, the second tried to pull his feet from under him. It was a fierce but unequal struggle. And though the boy struck out right and left, inflicting not a little injury, in the end he found himself on his back, with Stumpy Nuggs sitting on his chest. You rascals, let up, he gasped. Do you mean to kill me? Lay still or you'll catch it worse, growled Nuggs. Where's that rope, Longback? A rope had been brought along, and it was quickly produced, and then Tom was rolled over and his hands were bound behind him. His legs were also bound together in such a fashion that he might walk, but not run. Now, get up, ordered Dan Baxter with a wicked scowl. Not caring to remain on the ground, Tom did so. He noted that the 2 men with Baxter were tramps, and he came to the conclusion that he had a hard crowd with whom to deal. March, went on Baxter, taking Tom by the shoulder. March? Where to? You'll find out fast enough. Suppose I refuse? You'd better not, Tom Rover. You know I'm not to be trifled with. I'm not afraid of you, answered Tom boldly. You always were a bully, Dan Baxter, and a bully is a coward. Is your name Baxter? Asked Stumpy Nuggs curiously. Bad editing? Is your name Baxter? asked Stumpy Nuggs curiously. Never mind what it is, growled Baxter. I used to have a friend what knowed a fella named Baxter. went on the tramp. "Me friend's name was Buddy Girk." "I know your friend," cried Tom. "He once stole my brother Dick's watch. He is this boy's father's tool, and both of them are now in jail in Albany for robbery." "What?" cried Nuggs in astonishment. He turned to the other tramp. "Longback, I reckon we've struck an odd crowd, eh?" "That's what," answered Longback. "But say, we didn't go through the young gent's pockets yet." "Wait till we're off the road," interrupted Dan Baxter. "Somebody may come along and make trouble for us." "Right you are," answered Stumpy Nuggs. "Don't let's stay another minute." With Baxter on one side of him, Nuggs on the other, and Longback bringing up the rear, Tom was forced to march along. I didn't see it, sorry. Did it work? Goreki tried the key, just testing. I was not looking at the right time. Oh, good, it did work. The problem with me looking at the book is I don't actually see it, but everybody else does anyway. With Baxter on one side, Nuggs on the other, and Longback bringing up the rear, Tom was forced to march along. Once he resisted and received a punch in the side that took nearly all of the wind out of him. He started to cry for help, but his captors threatened if he did this that they would place a gag of dirty cloth in his mouth. In days gone by, Baxter had often visited a deserted dwelling on the lake shore, and to this spot the party now directed their steps. In the dark, their course was uncertain, and they made slow progress. Pardon me. So it was after 3 o'clock in the morning when the dilapidated building was reached. Chapter 9. A Dose of Tar and Feathers. "Make some kind of light, I can't see a thing," said Baxter as the little party came to a halt in front of a half-tumbled-down building. "He's really bossy. I don't know that I would accept him bossing me around if I were them. And also I would have been sceptical of him needing their help if I was them. I would have been like, well, if you've got a thing against this guy, why don't you do something about it? We'll watch and laugh." Stumpy Nuggs carried matches and quickly lit a bit of candle, which he produced from one of the pockets of his ragged attire. They entered the dwelling, forcing Tom to accompany them. This done, they tied the young cadet fast to an iron ring set in the huge old-fashioned fireplace. "Now we'll turn out his pockets," said Longback, and this was quickly done. To the tramp's chagrin, Tom carried no watch, but had with him $2 in money. "Now we'll take that ring," said Nuggs, pointing to the article on Tom's little finger. "So I've fallen in with a lot of thieves, eh?" said the boy. "Well, if you want the ring, you can fight for it." "Shut up," roared Dan Baxter, and struck him across the mouth, causing Tom's under lip to bleed. The boy tried to retaliate, but his bonds held him fast. While one tramp held his hand, the other possessed himself of the ring. The ring contained an opal, of which Tom was very proud, and to part with the article made the young cadet feel pretty bad. "You'll rue this night's work," he muttered. "I'll see you in prison for it." "Don't waste your breath in threatening," cried Baxter. "All right, Baxter, wait and see. I'll put you where your father is." The bully's face reddened. Will you shut up, or do you want another crack on the mouth? It's only a coward who'd strike a person when he's helpless. Coward or not, I want you to keep a civil tongue in your head. "Perhaps you imagine we don't know who tried to wreck the stage," went on Tom pointedly. "Wreck a stage? I know nothing of such a thing." "You know all about it, and we'll prove it too when you're under arrest." "I won't talk to you," howled Baxter. "Come with me," he added to the tramps, and then the three quit the building, leaving Tom to his reflections, which were dismal enough. "I'm in a pickle and no mistake," he murmured. "What will they do with me next?" So this is Tom murmuring. Hour after hour went by, and still Tom was left alone. In the meantime, Baxter had held a long conversation with the tramps and had formed a compact with them, paying them the $10 as agreed. Compact, an agreement. The sun was shining brightly when at last Dan Baxter re-entered the old building. "Getting hungry, I suppose," he remarked with a wicked grin. "Not particularly so," answered Tom coldly. He was hungry, but he was not going to admit to it. "I suppose you'd like to have your liberty," went on the bully. "Don't ask superfluous questions, Baxter. Let's get down to business. Why did you make me a prisoner, and what are you going to do with me?" "I made you a prisoner because I felt like doing so," growled the big youth. "And what do you propose to do next?" "Teach you a lesson that you won't forget all your life, Tom." "Thanks for nothing. I haven't forgotten how you and your brothers handled me out in Africa, and here too, for that matter. So we're just going to assume that he was offended by them treating him badly because he was being a bully or a baddie? I don't know." "You deserve what you got, Dan Baxter. Some people would have had you sent to prison for your actions." "Ha! You don't know what you're talking about. What were you doing out so late last night?" "None of your business." "Were you over at the Stanhope's place?" "Perhaps I was, and perhaps I wasn't." "Don't get mulish. Remember that you are absolutely in my power." "And what if I was at the Stanhope's place? Haven't I a perfect right to go there?" "Did you meet anybody there?" "Yes, I did. I met your particular friend, Josiah Crabtree." Baxter's face fell. "And what did you have to say to each other?" "Crabtree tried to rob the widow, and I believe you were outside waiting for him," Tom continued suddenly. "Nonsense!" At this moment, Stumpy Nuggs came in. "There's a man coming this way," he said excitedly. "What we do?" "A man?" said Tom Baxter in alarm. "I'll go out and see if I know him." He left the building with the tramp. The newcomer was approaching along the gully path. As he drew closer, Baxter recognised Josiah Crabtree. "Baxter!" exclaimed the former teacher as he came up. "This is fortunate. I was afraid you'd been captured." "And I was afraid you were in the same box," rejoined Baxter. "I had a hard time to get away. I got lost in the woods and had to remain out in the cold all night." "Then you didn't succeed in getting what you wanted, or in seeing Mrs. Stanhope?" "No, those confounded Rover boys turned up, and I had to leave in a hurry." "But who are these two men?" And Josiah Crabtree looked apprehensively at the tramps. "They're all right, Crabtree. They helped me to do a slick thing last night." "Ah, and what was that?" "I met Tom Rover on the road, and they helped me to capture him." "Indeed, and where is the young rascal now?" "A prisoner in the old house yonder." I'm going to have a drink of water now, because we had the word house. I'll have to put labels on my water bottles for next time. At this information, Josiah Crabtree was much astonished and begged for the particulars of the affair, which were speedily forthcoming. "And now you have him a prisoner, what do you propose to do?" asked the former teacher. "I'll soon show you," growled Baxter. "I'm going to do him up brown, or rather black. See here." And he led the way back to the gully and pointed to a pot of tar and a brush which rested by it. "It's tar!" cried Crabtree. "Exactly." "And you are going to give him a coat of that?" "Yes. Doesn't he deserve it?" "To be sure he does. I will assist you," answered the former teacher readily, with a malicious gleam in his fishy eyes. "I wish you had all three boys here to tar them with the same brush." "One at a time, Crabtree. We'll fix the others some time later." A fire was started, and the pot of tar was hung from a chain caught up between the two uprights, because it goes almost hard when it gets to normal temperature, and so you have to heat it up to make it liquid. Some of the softening stuff was smeared on the wood which was burning, and this made the blaze more fierce than ever. Soon the tar was near to the boiling point. The two tramps had thrown themselves down to watch the proceedings. "You ought to have some feathers," suggested Longback. "I have. There was an old musty feather bed in the house. I'm going to use that." Going into the building, Dan Baxter brought forth the feathers in question and placed them close to the pot of tar. While he was doing this, Josiah Crabtree went in to talk to Tom. Of course, the boy was surprised to see the former teacher, who eyed him darkly. "So, Baxter has caught you," began Crabtree. To this, Tom made no answer. "I presume you do not like your present position," went on the man. Still no reply. "You feel so bad about it that you do not even wish to talk. Is that it?" "No, I was just thinking about what an ugly, black-hearted villain you were, Crabtree," said Tom, looking him full in the face. "I don't believe you have a single spark of honour left in you." At this, Crabtree's face grew as dark as a thundercloud. "Ha! How dare you address me in this fashion?" he cried. "I know I'm taking a great risk, but I cannot help it." "Do you not forget that you and your brothers are solely responsible for my present position?" "No, actually, he's responsible for it because he's the one who is misbehaving." It's just one of those things. Being weird. Doesn't see the logic of his own bad deeds and behaviour being the cause of his trouble. He's blaming the people who are holding him to account. "That but for you I would have married the widow Stanhope and started one of the finest boys' schools in New York State." "He wasn't that good a teacher." "Yes, and you would have made Mrs. Stanhope perfectly miserable and squandered every dollar that she holds in trust for Dora." "That is your opinion, and it's worth nothing." "My opinion is the opinion of everybody that knows you as well as I do." "You have constantly interfered in the doings of myself and others, and now you must stand punishment for the same." "What do you intend to do?" demanded Tom quickly. "I'll show you," broke in the voice of Dan Baxter, and he came in, followed by the two tramps. Soon Tom was released from the fireplace and marched between them out into the open air. "How do you like that?" asked Baxter as he led the way to the fire. "Tar and feathers are fine, aren't they?" "You would tar and feather me?" asked Tom, and now it must be confessed that he shivered in spite of his efforts to remain calm. "Yes, we'll tar and feather you," responded Baxter, "and lay it on thick, Daniel," put in Josiah Crabtree. "Trust me for that." Baxter gave a signal to the two tramps, and they began to literally rip Tom's clothing from his back. Soon the unfortunate youth was stripped to the waist. Then Baxter caught up a brush full of tar and advanced upon him. Chapter 10. In the Nick of Time. "Baxter, don't you dare to tar me!" cried Tom as the bully faced him. "Ha ha! I guess you're pretty well scared now," laughed Baxter. "Your former show of bravery was all put on. If you go ahead, you shall suffer the full penalty for the outrage. Mark my words." They have a weird way of talking back then. "Tom Rover, you can't frighten me. When I get through with you, I'll warrant that your own mother won't know you." Tom tried to retreat, but each of the tramps held him by the arm so that he could not stir. As his legs were still bound, kicking was likewise out of the question. "Let me put a nice big cross on his chest first," said Baxter. "Here goes." He reached out with the brush, but before he could touch Tom, an interruption came, as forceful as it was unexpected. A thick stick came flying through the air, hitting his arm and sending the tar brush spinning to a distance. Wasn't expecting that one. "You rascal, let Tom alone," came in Dick Rover's voice, and he rushed in and threw the bully headlong. "Dick! Sam!" came from Tom joyfully. "Oh, how glad I am that you have come." "What dis?" gasped Stumpy Nuggs. "Long back, there's trouble ahead." "Yeah, and I don't intend to be in it," answered the second tramp. "I reckon we've got about all we want out of this crowd anyway," and both tramps took to their heels. Josiah Crabtree stood by, speechless. The interruption had come so suddenly that he knew not what to do. As quickly as he could, Dan Baxter scrambled to his feet. As he did so, Sam leapt for the tar brush and secured it. "Let me alone!" roared the bully and began to back away, but as he did so his hand went into his hip pocket and he drew a pistol. "No, you don't," cried Sam, and knocked the weapon from his hand with the brush. This action caused the hot tar to leave a heavy streak over Baxter's face and neck, and he let out a yell that would have done credit to an Indian on the warpath. "Wait, I'll get even with this. For this, Sam Rover," he hissed, and then as Dick advanced he turned and took to his heels, running as if the evil one were after him. Sam followed him, still swinging the brush, but Dan Baxter was soon lost to sight in the bushes. Dick now turned to where Josiah Crabtree had been standing. The former teacher had recovered and was making tracks down the gully toward the lake. The tramps had disappeared. He leapt to Tom's side. "We must bag some of them, Tom," he said, as he whipped out his knife and set his brother free. "There goes Crabtree. Let's collar him." Both boys ran as never before. Excuse me. And came upon the former teacher just as that individual reached the lake shore below the bluff. Tom made a grab and caught him by the coat tails. "Let me go!" snarled Crabtree and aimed a blow at the cadet's head, but Tom ducked and the next instant put out his foot and Crabtree pitched headlong into the lake. "Help me! I'll be drowned!" spluttered the former teacher as he came up with his head covered with mud, for the lake at this point was less than 5 feet deep. "Climb out and you'll be all right," sang out Dick, and then feeling the bottom with his feet, Crabtree looked very sheepish and clambered slowly up the bank. As he stood before them, all dripping with water and mud, he looked the picture of misery. "Boys, this is a sad way in which to treat your former teacher," he wailed. "Don't talk like that or I'll be tempted to throw you in again," exclaimed Tom. "Dick, what will we do with him?" "Hold him until we hear from Sam." They looked up the gully and soon espied the youngest Rover hurrying toward them. "Where's Baxter?" asked Dick. "He got away, but not until I let him have that tar brush right in the neck," answered Sam. "Hello, so you've captured old Crabby, eh? That's good." "Surely you do not intend to keep me a prisoner," he remarked. Josiah Crabtree in a voice which he tried in vain to steady. This is really quite odd. The poor editing on this. Like, there'll be a line break when there's not meant to be a line break. Anyway. "That's just what we intend to do," answered Dick. "You'll march right to the Cedarville lockup with us." While Dick and Sam guarded the prisoner, Tom ran back for his torn coat and other garments, and also for the rope. When he returned, Crabtree's hands were bound, and the cadets told him to move along. He was searched, and a pistol taken from him. Crabtree went along most unwillingly. Once he refused to budge, but Dick showed the pistol, and that settled his stubbornness, and he went along as willingly as a lamb. On the outskirts of Cedarville, the party met Chief Burger and Detective Trigger. "So you have one of them, eh?" cried the chief. Very good indeed. Turn him over to me and I'll take him straight to headquarters." "You must be careful that he doesn't get away," said Dick. "I've got a feeling he will get away. Just because." "Just so, lad, I will be. No one ever escaped from me, not much. Come on, sir," and he caught Josiah Crabtree by the arm. "This is awful," groaned the former teacher, "and right here in Cedarville too, where everybody knows me." "You should have thought of those things before, Mr. Crabtree," said Dick, his heart softening a little now that he saw the man was beginning to break down. "What will my friends and the profession at large say?" And Crabtree shook his head bitterly. "Okay. You've only yourself to blame," put in Tom. He had not forgotten how Crabtree had threatened him but a short while before. Suddenly the former teacher's last drop of courage seemed to desert him, and, deadly pale, he sank on his knees. "Spare me, boys, spare me! For the sake of my family and friends, spare me!" "What family?" I didn't know you had a family, put in Sam. My relatives, my poor dear distant relatives, replied Crabtree, hardly aware of what he was saying. Spare me for their sakes, and I will reward you well. The law must take its course, Mr. Crabtree, said Dick. He turned to Chief Burger. Take him, and Tom can go with you to make the charge for us, and for Mrs. Stanhope. I think Detective Trigger had better come with Sam and me to hunt for Dan Baxter. So it was arranged. And soon Crabtree was walking into Cedarville with the chief of police on one side of him and Tom on the other. The sight of a man being placed under arrest was an unusual one, and soon a crowd began to follow the three. It's Mr. Crabtree that used to teach at Putnam Hall, said one. My, but ain't he a sight? Must have tried to get away by jumping into the lake, suggested another. What's he arrested for? Asked a third. Nobody in the crowd knew, and consequently all followed to the police headquarters. Breaking in and trying to steal. No, missed a bit. Here, Chief Burger, who also acted as Justice of Police. Justice of Police? What is a Justice of Police? Took down Tom's charge against the former teacher. Breaking in and trying to steal, said Tom. That's not so, cried Crabtree. Boy, this is infamous. I never stole a thing in my life. We will prove it when your trial comes off, answered Tom coolly. Let us try to patch this thing up, went on Josiah Crabtree. Chief, will you kindly send for Mrs. Stanhope? I'm certain she will not allow this charge to stand against me. See here, you shan't try any of your games on that lady, exclaimed Tom. I know the peculiar influence you exert over her, and I feel bound to protect her. She is not my enemy as you are. I know she will clear me. Not much. If she won't testify against you, her daughter Dora will, and so will I, and my brothers, and some other folks too. I demand to see my accusers, stormed Crabtree, trying to put on a bold front. All right, Dick and Sam will be here after a while, and then, if you wish, we'll air all our doings, we'll air all of your doings since the time Captain Putnam discharged you. At the last words, the former teacher, Winston, turned pale, for he knew his record would not bear investigating. You are a bad boy, Tom Rover. Leave me, he muttered, and turned his back on the cadet. A few minutes later, as he could not furnish bail, he was led to a cell and locked up. Just as well he couldn't furnish bail. As soon as Crabtree was disposed of, Tom left the jail to find his brothers. This was no easy matter, and it was not until well along in the afternoon that he discovered Dick, Sam, and Detective Trigger down by the lake shore nearly a mile from Cedarville. Any luck? He asked. Not a bit, replied Dick. He has given us the slip nicely. The hunt continued until nightfall, and was kept up all of the next day, but it proved of no avail. Dan Baxter had left the vicinity of the lake entirely, and the Rover boys were destined not to see him again for many days to come. The arrest of Josiah Crabtree had occurred on Friday. On Monday came a letter from Mr. Anderson Rover stating that Alexander Pop would arrive in Cedarville on Tuesday and might remain at Mrs. Stanhope's cottage as long as the lady and the boys wished. So Anderson Rover is the boy's father, who's been missing in Africa up until the last book. That was what the adventure was about, was finding their father. I wish Alec to be near you. So Alec, that's Alexander Pop. And Alec in here, his name Alexander is written with an X in the middle of it, which is the normal spelling. But his nickname, Alec, is not written with an X, or just a K, or just a C. It's A-L-E-C-K. Usually a short version of Alexander is Alex, not Alec. A-L-E-C-K. It looks really weird. I wish Alec to be near you, wrote Mr. Rover. It alarms me greatly to hear of the trouble that you are having. It seems to me that our family are bound to be in hot water all the time. I cannot understand Arnold Baxter. As he is in prison at Albany, I do not see how he can trouble me, at least for the next few years. Well, that's a little bit too naive, really. I have looked up that mining property in Colorado very carefully and shall go out there as soon as the coming winter is at an end. Perhaps I will take one or all of you with me, but that will depend upon how good you do at your studies this winter. I shan't take anybody along that can't show a good report. How to keep them motivated. Chapter 11. Brought to trial. By jinks, we'll have to be on our good behaviour, observed Tom after he'd read his father's letter. That's so, responded Sam. Father means to have us study, or else we must stay here during the spring term. Well, most people would have to stay at school. As anticipated, Alexander Pop reached Cedarville Tuesday afternoon. He came first to Putnam Hall and was warmly received both by the Rover boys and by the others who knew him as an old hand around the hall. Glad you've come, Alec, cried Tom. I declare it looks as if you belonged here. Yes, sir, and I done feel like I belong here too, Master Tom, answered the coloured man. Remember the sport we used to have, put in Sam. Deed I do, Master Sam, and the tricks you lads used to play on this here fella, and Alex smiled broadly. Captain Putnam also came forward to greet Pop. There had been a time when the captain had suspected Pop of stealing, and the coloured man had run away in preference to being sent to jail. But now it was known by all that the faithful man was innocent, and the master of the hall was sorry that he had ever accused him. Pop, I miss you a good deal, he said kindly. If ever you are out of work again, come to me and I will let you stay here as long as you please. Thank you, Captain Putnam. I'll remember that. But I done love the Rovers, and there's no use to talk, and as long as they want me to stay by them, that's where you're going to find Alec Pop. Yes, sir. And he bobbed his head to emphasise his words. I do not blame you for sticking by them, answered the captain, for they always stood by you. Of course, some of the boys could not help but have some fun with Pop. Some ran off with his hat, and when they returned it to him, it was half full of flour, though he did not know it. Mustn't do that, Larry Colby, he said as he took the hat. This man done catch cold in this hat, in his head without a hat, and then they put the headgear on his head very carefully. Only a bit of Larry's sport, said Frank. Come in, the captain wants to give you some supper before you start out for the Stanhope's place. Never suspecting that anything was wrong, Alec Pop entered the kitchen attached to the academy, where Mrs. Green, the matron, had a nice supper spread for him. How you do, Alec? She said pleasantly as he came in. How you do, Mrs. Green, he answered, and took his hat off. As you did when you greeted a lady, you took your hat off. He took his hat off with such a flourish that part of the flour swept into his face. He didn't know there was flour in it when they put it carefully on his head. And the balance landed over the supper table. Oh, oh, screamed Mrs. Green. What in the world have you done? I am covered with flour from head to foot. And then she began to sneeze with great violence. Indeed, missus, I don't, replied Pop, sneezing. I didn't. But you did, she answered. You covered me with, oh, you, and then she went off into another prolonged sneeze. Pop had gotten some of the flour in his eyes. Indeed, his face was white from top to bottom, and it was several minutes before he could see what he was doing. His sneezing made him bump his head against the kitchen shelf, and at a point where sat a bowl of rice pudding. Oh, dear. Part of the pudding was plastered to his forehead, while the balance turned over onto the cat, sleeping on the floor. Ow! Wailed the cat, and started across the kitchen on a run, nearly upsetting Mrs. Green in its hurry to get away from more trouble. Stop! Did you kick my pet cat? Screamed Mrs. Green. Oh, you brute! I never... And then she had to stop talking and let the sneezing have full effect. I didn't kick... Nothing, spluttered Alec. I done... them boys done... Darn boys did it. Did what? Put flour in my hat. That old boy take it, finished Alec, and then he blundered out of the kitchen and tried to find Larry and the others, but all of the cadets who had been watching the proceedings through the kitchen window had vanished and could not be found. I don't think it was a really nice prank, really. A couple of hours later, Tom and Dick took the man down to Stanhope Cottage. Mrs. Stanhope already knew him well, as did Dora, and both were glad that he had come to stay with them. Pop had brought along a pistol and also a war club he had picked up in Africa, and declared himself ready to meet any and all comers. "I done learn how to shoot purty straight," he remarked, "so the fellas what prowls around better look out for themselves." "Crabtree's in jail, so you'll only have Dan Baxter to guard against," said Dick, "and I hardly think he'll show up in a hurry." That night Dick and Tom had a long conversation with Mrs. Stanhope. The lady was very nervous, and when asked if she would appear against Josiah Crabtree, she shivered from head to foot. I cannot do it," she said brokenly. "Do not ask it of me. I cannot face him without him making me feel as if I were in his power." "He's some sort of hypnotist," said Tom. "Cannot you remember that, and nerve yourself against coming under his spell?" The lady only shivered again. No, I've tried it, for Dora's sake, but I cannot do it. I am horrified at his influence, but I cannot withstand it." Then you'll keep away from the courtroom when he's tried?" "Yes, I must. I will get my doctor to issue a certificate that I am ill." "Will you let Dora testify if she wishes to do so?" There the matter rested, and the two boys sought out Dora. "It's too bad," said Dick on the way. "Mrs. Stanhope is on the verge of a nervous collapse, and I believe it's all on account of Crabtree's doings." "Yes, and I'm afraid she'll never get away from his influence. If he hadn't been something of a hypnotist, I don't believe she would ever have taken to him at the start as she did." When Dora was told of what her mother had said, she felt like crying, and the tears stood in her eyes. "I know it all only too well," she said. "I'm glad Mama will not face him." It says Mill, not Will. That's really weird. "Why, he would influence her into declaring that he was innocent." "But you will testify, won't you?" asked Dick earnestly. "If you wish it, Dick, but I hate the publicity. Crabtree ought to be put where he can do your mother no further harm." "Yes, I feel that too." "And you must remember how he helped to abduct you." "I haven't forgotten that." Dick and Tom remained until it was quite late. I can't get over how many mistakes there are in this. And then almost ran back to the hall, for the captain had told them not to be out after 11 o'clock. For several days matters ran smoothly at the hall. Then came Josiah Crabtree's trial, and all of the Rover boys set out to the county seat to remain several days. With them went Dora and her uncle John Lanning. The former teacher's trial lasted longer than expected, and the jury were out the best part of a night before arriving at a verdict. In the end, much to the Rover boys' surprise, Crabtree was sentenced to 6 months in the county jail instead of to several years in the state's prison. What about kidnapping? Are they overlooking? I can't understand it, muttered Dick when they were on the way back to the hall. He must have hypnotised the judge who tried the case. The verdict was a disappointing one, yet it was something to know that Crabtree would be out of the way even that long. "Before he gets out, you can be on your trip to Buffalo and the Great Lakes," said Dick to Dora, "and perhaps you can hide your whereabouts from him so he can't get at your mother to try on his game again." "I can certainly try to throw him off the track," answered the girl. "I never want to see him again." Captain Putnam was anxious to learn how the trial had ended, and came from the academy on horseback to meet the boys. "Well, it is something," he said, half smiling, "but you are right, he deserved more." "I knew he was no good," said Tom. "Knew it from the first time I met him, when he was head assistant here and placed me under arrest for shooting off a firecracker at the gate." At this, Captain Putnam laughed outright. "You have a good memory, Thomas, I must say. Well, you are square now, as you boys call it." Excuse me. So, next chapter, Chapter 12, Winter Days at Putnam Hall. After the trial of Josiah Crabtree, the days flew by swiftly at the hall. Oh, stop it. The silly thing was scrolling. The days flew by swiftly at the Hall. Bound to make a good showing, each of the Rover boys applied himself diligently to his studies, and all made rapid progress because they don't want to miss this trip with their father out west. Thanksgiving came and went, and a week later there came a fairly heavy fall of snow. "Hurrah! Winter is knocking at the door at last," cried Sam joyfully. "Now for some snowballing, skating, and all the rest of the winter fun." Snowballing was already going on, and the white balls were flying in all directions. Dick had his hat taken off by Frank, and in return filled Frank's ear with snow. Tom and Fred got into a regular war at close quarters, and in the end Tom threw his opponent flat and stuffed snow down his neck. But when Larry came up with a huge cake of snow and nearly smothered Tom, and then a dozen leapt in, and a good-natured melee resulted, lasting for the rest of the playtime. It was very cold that night, and 2 days later the ice on the lake was 2 inches thick. Still, the captain made the boys wait until the following Saturday, when the ice was strong enough to bear a horse. In the meantime, skates had been brought out and polished up, and soon the edge of the lake was alive with skaters, all moving swiftly from one spot to another, and shrieking and laughing at the tops of their voices. George Strong, the assistant master, also came down and showed some of the older boys how to cut fancy figures. Dick was a good skater and took to the fancy figures with ease, so what they're learning is figure skating. Being able to do all sorts of different shapes and moves on the ice instead of just going fast. As for Tom and Sam, they preferred straight skating and ended half a dozen trials to speed down the lake to the old boathouse and back. "If it gets much colder so that the ice thickens, I'm going to build an ice boat," said Frank to Dick that night. "Captain Putnam said I could have all the old lumber I want. The carpenters left a lot when they fixed over that burnt part of the hall." "Hurrah! An ice boat!" cried Dick. "Just the thing. Let me help you, Frank. Perhaps the captain will let us have an old camping-out tent for a sail." "Yes, I've asked him about that already, and he told Mrs. Green to get me one from the storehouse." "What about nails and runners?" "Peleg Snuggers is going to give me the nails and lend me the tools. The runners I'll have to buy down at the blacksmith's shop. There's an old cask down at the boathouse. We can take the hoops from that and have the blacksmith straighten them out, and they'll do first rate for runners." That's a cool idea. So the talk ran on, and on the following Monday, as the cold continued, the boys set to work during the off time to build the ice boat. Tom, Sam and Hans joined in, and as soon as the frame was put together, the boat was christened the Fiver, because, as Frank declared it, was built to hold just 5 and no more. There was a class devoted to manual training at the hall, so that all the boys were acquainted with the use of tools. These days it would be called workshop, or shop science, or metalwork and woodwork, that sort of thing. Manual training, okay. The building of the ice boat progressed rapidly, and soon all that were wanting were the sail and the runners, okay. Frank and Dick procured the hoops and had the blacksmith straighten them out and punch holes into them. And Mrs. Green kindly transformed an old tent into a mainsail of no mean proportions. That means it's good size. As a matter of fact, it would have been better for the boys had the sail been smaller. Oh dear. It was a rather cloudy Saturday half-holiday when the boys placed the ice boat on rollers and rolled it down to the lakefront. All the other cadets watched the proceedings with interest, and were sorry they could not go on the proposed trip, but Frank promised that all should have their turns later on. A fair breeze was blowing, and no sooner was the mainsail raised than the Fiver moved off in such a lively fashion that Tom, who had lingered behind, had all he could do to run and get on board. "We're off! Hurrah!" yelled Sam, and the others took up the cry, and both those on board and those left behind waved hats and caps in the air and set up a cheer. "And now where shall we go?" asked Frank, as they whizzed along. "That will depend upon the wind," came from Tom. "Remember, we must get back before 7 o'clock. "Yeah, The wind is everything's, put in Hans. Supposing we get far away and the wind stops blowing, what then? Then we'll set you on the rear seat to blow the sail yourself, replied Frank. This wind is good for all day, and I know it, he added emphatically. Let us follow the shore for the present, said Tom. Perhaps the Pornell students are skating below here, and we can show them what we are up to. So on they went along the shore until the wind began to change and carry them out into the lake. Here the ice was, however, far from safe, and they began to tack back. That means they were going side to side so that they had the wind blowing in the right way to make them go forwards. It's snowing, cried Sam presently. He was right, and ere long the flakes were coming down thickly. With the coming of the snow, the wind died out utterly. Here's a pickle, remarked Tom in disgust. Frank, I thought you said this wind was good for all day. Frank must have had his sleeping cap on when he said that, put in Hans, and the others set up a laugh. Well, I did think the wind would hold out, replied Frank, with a wry face. This is going to spoil everything. Did anybody bring their skates? Nobody had, although all had calculated to do so. In the excitement, every pair had been forgotten. Now we can't even skate home, said Dick, and I rather think it'll be a long walk, at least 3 miles. That's not the worst of it, came from his youngest brother. Look how heavily it's snowing. Who's afraid of a little snow? Blustered Tom. Nobody, but if we can't see our way... By Jove, I never thought of that, groaned Frank. Just look around, boys. It's awful, isn't it? Much startled, all looked round. On every hand the snow was coming down so thickly that they could not see a distance of 2 rods in any direction. A rod is actually a surveyor's measure for distance. We seem to be cut off, observed Dick soberly. I reckon the best thing we can do is make for the shore. And leave the 5 behind? No, let us lower the sail and push her in front of us. This was considered good advice, and much put out over the sudden termination of their sport, the 5 cadets lowered the sail and tied it up and then leapt to the ice. So obviously the wind angle is wrong for actually going in that direction, otherwise they'd be sailing, wouldn't they? Now then, all together, cried Frank, but to his surprise Tom and Hans pushed in a different direction to others. Why, Tom, that's not the way, cried Frank. Isn't it? Burst out Tom. Why not? Because it isn't. Of course, that is the way, cried Hans. The shore was over there. Yes, the other shore, but not the one we left and the one we want to get back to. A long discussion followed, and it was soon realised that either Tom and Hans, or else the others, were sadly mixed up. The majority rules, said Frank, so let's go this way. All right, I will, grumbled Tom, but I still think you're wrong. And I was sure of him, added Hans. However, they took hold willingly enough, and soon the whole party were moving slowly through the snowstorm, shoving the 5 in front of them. The snow had now become blinding, and absolutely nothing was to be seen around them. Half an hour passed, and they were wondering why the shore did not appear, when suddenly Dick uttered a warning cry. Look out! We're going into the open water! Back, all of you! They leapt back, fairly tumbling over each other in their efforts to escape the water, which crept up to their feet without warning. As they pushed themselves back, they naturally sent the 5 flying forward, and an instant later they heard a crashing of ice and saw the ice boat topple over into the water and disappear from view. So Tom and Hans were right. The other boys were going across the lake, across the open part. Oh dear. I've got a tickle in my throat now. Not so good. Hello, come on. Cat's talking to me. Come on. Yeah. Come on. I'm just going to go and see what he's talking to me about. You just telling me that you came inside? He must have been outside and just come back in. That's what he often does when I'm not streaming, is he'll come in, he'll walk in the door, and then he'll say hello to me, and then keep saying hello until either I move or he goes into a different room. Funny cat. I don't know if I'm going to be able to manage the whole of the last half hour, just with the way my voice is starting to get this tickle. We'll see how we go. Chapter 13, Lost in the Snow. Oh, it's donkey braying. The ice boat's gone. Get back, boys, or we'll all be in the water. Crack! A long warning sound rang through the snow-laden air, and the party of 5 felt the surface of the ice parting beneath them. They turned and sped away from the water with all the speed at their command, and soon the dangerous spot was left behind, but not before poor Hans had lost his cap, and Sam had gotten his left foot wet to the ankle. By jinks, but that was a narrow shave, gasped Dick when they were safe. A little more and all of us would have been under the ice. And that would have cost us our lives, said Frank solemnly. Boys, I don't believe I'll ever want to go ice boating again. Mein Cap was gone, growled the German cadet dismally. How was I going to keep mine head from freezing? Tell me that, will you? That's rough on you, said Tom. Here, take my tippet and tie that around your head and ears. Tippet in this use is kind of like a scarf. A tippet traditionally is a fur stole that a lady would wear, like an extra collar. But I think it might be a fur scarf in this use. And he took the article in question and handed it over. Thank you, Tom. You was a good fella, but what you was to do to keep your neck warm, hey? Here's a silk handkerchief. He can wear that, said Dick. But I say, fellas, he went on, I think we're all mixed up now and no mistake. I am sure I am, answered Frank. I haven't the least idea where the shore is. Nor I, came from Tom. We'll have to go at it in a hit-or-miss fashion. No miss for me, put in Sam. I'm not prepared for a watery grave just now. We must be cautious, said Dick. I've got an idea. Has anybody a rope with him? I've got a heavy cord, answered Frank. Then let us tie that to each fellow's right wrist. Then we can string out in a line like the Swiss mountain climbers. Excuse me. And if the boy in front gets into trouble, the others can call him out. Hurrah! Dick has solved the problem of how the lost cadets are going to get to safety, cried Sam. Let us have the cord by all means. It was quickly produced and proved to be about 40 feet in length. Dick tied himself fast to one end and Sam the other, and the others came between. Now then, forward march, shouted Dick, and on they moved in Indian file. Route step, shouted Frank, and they broke up as ordered, that is, each walking to suit himself so that their feet should not come down on the ice at the same time, something that might have caused more cracking. The snow still came down as hard as ever. Indeed, to Dick it appeared to come down harder. The wind was beginning to rise again and blew the blinding particles directly into their faces. What's the use of walking right into the teeth of the wind, grumbled Tom. Why not try the other way? I think the wind comes from off the shore, that's why, answered his elder brother. I don't. I think it's coming down the lake. I believe Dick's right, ventured Frank. The wind came that way before. That's why we were blown out so far. The matter was put to a vote, and all but Tom agreed that they must be heading for the western shore of the lake. So the weary tramp was resumed. It was not without its incidents. Once Hans' feet went out from under him and he went flat on his back, taking Tom with him. This caused the line to tighten and all went on top of the pair, and a grand melee resulted. Then Tom playfully filled Sam's neck with snow and Hans let a little snowball drop into Tom's ear, and in a second all were at it in a snow fight which lasted several minutes. At last Dick arose and shook himself. Hi, this won't do, he cried, brushing himself off. Unless we hurry, we will be late in getting back. Late in getting back, repeated Frank. I shall count myself lucky if we don't have to remain here all night. Great Caesar, Frank, do you mean that? Came from Sam. I do. Here we've been tramping I don't know how long, and we seem to be as far from the shore as ever. Exactly so, grumbled Hans. I think we must be moving around in the ring, hey? Can it be possible? Asked Tom. Don't think so, answered Dick, for I've been watching the ice very closely and I haven't seen the first sign of our doubling our steps. Let's keep out in a straight line, said Tom. That will keep us away from the circle business. Once more they pushed on, but the snow was now several inches deep and the ice very slippery, and all of the party could scarcely drag one foot after the other. It was Sam who called another halt. I'm getting winded, he panted. Boys, I guess we're lost in the snow. That's true, Sam, said Frank. The shore seems to be as far off as ever. I told you were wrong, put in Tom. If we'd been walking toward the shore, we would have been on land long ago. I don't know, but that Tom's view is correct, said Frank slowly, unless we've been moving in a crooked line. As Hans suggested, said the elder Rover. One and another of the little party gazed at his companions and then at the desolate scene around them. Yes, they were lost in the snowstorm, and what the end of the adventure would be, they could not imagine. Well, we can try Tom's course, said Dick, after another careful look around, which was not saving much as the snow was coming down as thickly as ever. I notice that it is getting dark, observed Frank as they trudged on. I wonder what time it is. A watch was consulted, and they learned to their chagrin it was 4:30. I was getting hungry, came from Hans. Don't say a word, cried Tom. I could eat a doughnut a month old. Don't speak about it, put in Dick. It will only make you feel more hungry. Darkness was coming on rapidly, and all the boys were beginning to despair when suddenly Dick gave a shout of joy. The shore, boys! The shore at last! Where? Came from all the others. Over to our left. Come on. The others followed Dick willingly, and in less than half a minute found themselves on solid earth once more, but at some point where the ground was little more than a stretch of flat meadowland. Would have been so easy to miss it because of it being low. Hurrah! Shouted Sam. How good to be on land once more. Perhaps we might have been on land long ago if we'd turned to the left, observed Frank. We may have been skirting the shore for half the afternoon. Never mind, we're here at last, so don't let's grumble, said Tom. What's that ahead? A barn? Some kind of a building, answered Dick. Let us go forward and investigate. They did so, and found a half-tumbled-down building which had once been used for the storage of meadow hay, and also as a boathouse. The door was gone and the window broken out, and the snow lay on the floor to the depth of an inch or more. But still it was more pleasant inside than out, for the wind was rising, and the large flakes of snow had given place to fine, hard particles, which came swishing down like so much sharp salt. So Dick said. It cut into their faces and made them thankful that some shelter had been found, no matter how humble. It was too dark now to see anything, and sitting on some old hay in the most sheltered corner of the building, the 5 boys held a consultation. I move we stay here till morning, said Tom. If we go out again, we may be lost and frozen to death. That's true, commented Frank, but what will Captain Putnam say? He can't blame us for what happened, said Dick. We tried our best to get back. Ja, and he was no... We don't stay here without suppers for nothings, was the manner in which the German cadet expressed himself. I'm dealing with a faked-on accent done with letters and also editorial bad editing. Sorry, words are hard at the moment. Oh, Hans, how could you? Broke from Tom, who could eat at any time and now felt more hungry than any of them. Do you mean to say we'll have to remain here all night without our suppers? Well, what else you was going to do, hey? We'll have to go without something to eat unless we can find something close to hand, said Frank. One after another went out to the doorway and to the open window and gazed forth, but the howling wind... I'm going to stop at the end of this chapter, which is nearly there, just because my voice is getting more and more itchy. But the howling wind and blinding snow soon made all glad enough to get back to the sheltered corner. It was now pitch black. "We're in for it, so make yourselves as comfortable as possible," observed Frank. "My, how the wind does blow." "It's like a hurricane in an African forest," said Sam. "I believe it's almost strong enough to take a fellow off his feet." The wind kept increasing in violence until the old barn seemed to rock back and forth. It arose in a low moan and mounted steadily to a shriek, gradually dying away in the distance, followed by the slishing of the fine snow across the rotted shingles of the roof. "It's a tempest not to be forgotten," said Frank. "I can't remember when I've heard the wind make such a noise before. If it gets any worse, Frank got no further, for the shrieking of the wind drowned out every other sound. Then came a strange grinding and creaking overhead, and the barn rocked more than ever. "Get out, boys!" yelled Tom. "The old shebang's going to pieces." Tom had scarcely spoken when the shock came, and beams, boards, and shingles flew in all directions. It was a terrifying occurrence, and not knowing what else to do, the 5 boys dug into the loose hay and threw themselves flat. Each felt as if the end of the world had come. And that's the end of the chapter. I'm not going to read the next chapter because I don't think my voice is going to cope with it. I'll give you a teaser though. Chapter 14 starts, it's called A Few Spring Happenings, and it starts, "Luckily for the boys, the barn was blown clean over on its side, its roof falling some distance away so that none of the wreckage came down on top of the crowd." So that's where I'm going to leave it today. I am going to finish early just because my throat is too itchy as I'm reading. It's just not worth it. I don't really want to have any problems. Sorry, come on, hurry up and turn off. No, it's not turning off. So, thank you for spending time with me today. I'm so sorry I can't actually complete today's reading, even though technically there would be time to. I just don't think it's worth it with my voice at the moment. Hopefully I'll be able to read on Friday. Hopefully I won't be worse than this. I'll be better than this. And hopefully I won't get too much interruption from the medical phone call. Thank you. I will be taking care of myself, and you guys take care of yourselves as well. Remember, be kind to yourself as